Hello, everybody. This is so exciting. I cannot believe we are here. The moment has come, day 2 of WebGrowth Summit. I am so happy that you are here, and I cannot wait to bring on the most amazing guests I've ever met. Tell you what, you guys, I am best friends with these new people that I just met. I love them, and you're going to love them too. Want to shout out from yesterday. We had a fantastic day for day 1 of WebGrowth Summit. It was really great. We were talking a lot about how to get traffic, right? So how to get the people that you want to your site, to your store, to whatever it is you're selling, right? Whatever you're offering. Hi, hey, Anna. And then today we're going to talk about how do you convert them, right? So you bring them to your front door. How do you get them through the front door? So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about website reliability. We're talking about UI, UX driven conversions. We are doing the great stuff. Yes. We have some comments in the post in the chat here. Hey, Ron, we had a great day yesterday. It was a great day yesterday. If you all missed those videos, those recordings, just go watch them right now. Especially that last one was just life-changing. So we're here to provide amazingness for you today too. Thank goodness. We've got an amazing giveaway later on in the day. We've got a gift card for y'all. So the person who is chatting the most, right? The person's the most outgoing, maybe not, but go ahead and be very active because we do have a prize at the end of the day. It's a Cloudways gift card, $150. Hey, that's pretty great. So do participate today. We're going to have lots of polls and surveys and questions. And we're very, very excited about this. First up, well, let me just tell you before we go first up, and let me scare everybody behind the back screen. Before we go in, you guys, today we have 3 amazing sessions, right? We're going to have a panel, and then we're going to have an audit, right? Which is really, really exciting. Live, everybody here, some people submitted stuff, and we're going to go look at their websites, and we're going to do this full amazing audit, and then we're going to go into another expert panel. So this is just too thrilling, and I'm going to introduce our first panel. If you're ready, are you ready? Let's see it in the chat. I'm looking. Are you ready? Oh, yeah. Okay. Some people. Oh, we already have a fight for the gift card. I love it, you guys. This is serious business here. We are here to, honestly, big picture, we're changing the world, y'all. I don't know why you're here, what you're doing, what you're thinking. Cloudways, UGURUS, we are here to change the world. I'm super glad you're here. Let's introduce this panel. We've got amazing guests for you. Yes, there they are. I'm so excited. First of all, Vladi, you'll never meet somebody who's more hilarious, right? So we're going to bring Vladi up on the stage. Vladi is super, super phenomenal. Head of implementation. There he is. Look at him. He's so wonderful. At Omniconvert, he's going to bring us some brilliance. I'm so excited you're here. We'll do a little more intro in a minute. We've got Nick in the house, right? Nick, super excited. You are here too. Senior Director of Engineering at DigitalOcean. There we go. There we go. Love the energy. Glad you are here. Thank you. Thank you. We also have Mike coming on strong here. Mike is the founder of Reaction Digital and the president of Red Deer Chamber. So glad you're here. This is exciting. And last but definitely not least, we've got Weston coming in. He's the founder of Local & Co. This panel today, yay, there he is. Excellent. This panel today is about to wow you and thrill you. We've got a lot of excellent questions here. We are talking about being traffic ready. So if you all remember, or if you weren't here yesterday, well, let me just tell you, we talked a lot about getting traffic to your site. Now we're talking about what happens when they get there. What if crazy things happen, right? So being traffic ready, enhancing website scalability and reliability. Y'all know that pain when your site is down. Knock on wood. I don't even want to mention it, so we're not going to go there. Let's go into some questions. As we go into these fabulous questions, I'm going to ask each of you, and Mike, we're getting a lot of feedback from your mic, just to let you know. It might be a mic thing. Let's do it. We're going to ask some questions here. First one is, guys, as we're looking at websites and we're looking at our livelihood, y'all know we were joking earlier. You guys, we were joking earlier about what if our power goes out? That's not a joke, right? So this idea of the fact that, look at the serious nods. Yes, that is not a joke. Having this reliability is so important. And we've heard all these crazy stories we've heard them and experienced them, about websites crashing during big events. Right? This dreaded, you're sleeping at night and you go, I just hope this doesn't happen, right? And what are some of the usual culprits behind these crashes and how can we dodge the bullet? I'm going to ask you guys, hop on in, want to hear these thoughts and opinions.
Oh boy, do I have a story for you.
Oh boy.
I mean, it was back in the day for sure, you know, a lot of years ago. And I was actually running a blog with a couple of friends, and we were doing affiliate marketing, right? So basically, our money came from other people buying. And we were preparing for Christmas because around that time, a lot of people make gifts, buy gifts, and we were making recommendations on our tech blog. And guess what happened?
Oh
We
boy.
poured money into ads and we tried to enter our site and it wasn't working. And the usual culprit in most of the situation is the database. It crashed, basically, couldn't handle the load, couldn't handle the traffic. So, yay, poured money in, got nothing out of it. Well, not nothing, we still got something out of it, but lesson learned.
Yeah, lesson learned, and that's always a bittersweet prize is the lesson learned.
Yes,
Um,
it is.
how about the rest of you? What do we do to prevent this?
Yeah, I think Vladi came with a good point there. I mean, we've seen so many situations where, you know, marketing efforts and affiliate marketing and everything we did, especially all the talks on day one of how to drive the traffic, a lot of focus gets put on there, and just inadequate testing and resources are applied to how you're going to scale when you actually get that traffic and what you're going to do about that. I would say probably, in my experience, 80% of the time is the resources. So database being one of them, but anything from CPU, RAM, and just anything on your hosting structure that has not been prepared. Depending if you are, you know, a Cloudways customer or DigitalOcean and you're running WordPress, high chances there's a code base issue there, you know, from a bloated theme, plugins, and off-the-shelf items. Again, a lot of this stuff can be avoided through your testing and your load testing beforehand to identify any of those bottlenecks, and also preparing for that surge beforehand, and that will, you know, just help get those conversions that you spend a lot of money trying to get. But I think on both sides, for clients especially, you know, they look at the marketing side as just one aspect of driving that traffic through. But I'll say it's quite similar to a physical retail store. You know, you can't get a very small front-facing store, you know, with a real small doorway and expect to get massive traffic in. No matter how good your marketing is, they can't fit. And you should see your technical backend and your hosting scalability in the same way. You know, you need a bigger store so people can actually be able to walk in and you have enough shop assistants there to help them out and talk to them. Just apply that on the technical side.
I love that.
Yeah, I'll build on what Weston was saying there. So I come from the agency world working with clients. So I've experienced this many times over the past 16 or so years we've been doing this work. And yeah, it's always going to be or generally always a resource issue, is why you're going to have some downtime when you're getting hit with that flood of traffic. I always sort of put this type of scenario or this type of situation into two different buckets. So you have the unexpected flood of traffic. So this is where you get mentioned on a blog or some sort of social post goes viral that maybe wasn't even shared by you, and you get this unexpected flood of traffic. And then the second bucket is where you know this is coming. So we've had clients that have been on Shark Tank, or they know that there's some big media or event happening that they're going to get a bunch of exposure at. So when you have the opportunity to be proactive about this, I think, you know, it was already said, but making sure your CMS and your plugins are up to date ahead of time, doing some load testing, making sure that you have a backup server or application ready to go, that your caching is enabled, and then you can actually pay for load testing services that will flood your website with you know, thousands of concurrent visitors so that you can see how it's going to handle under those kinds of conditions. And so if you have the opportunity to be proactive because you know you're going to get that flood of traffic, I think this scenario is a little bit easier to deal with. But it's really the unexpected flood of traffic that I think is the most stressful, because you didn't have the opportunity to be prepared, and now you're dealing with a fire that you weren't prepared for. And a couple of the things that I like to have in my toolbox when this happens. So number one is having good active uptime monitoring. So there's lots of services that you can do this from. Cloudways will send you notifications. There's third-party services you can use. We've got this piped right into our company Slack, so that if any website experiences downtime, the whole team's going to see that right away. So that's probably the first step, is just knowing about it. And then right away, you want to check your log files then and see, why did it go down? What resource did we exhaust? And is that something that we can just change as a setting on the server? Because if it's just, say, like your amount of memory going to PHP, you could be adjusting that. But if you're actually maxing out your CPU, now you need to move to a different type of server. And then this is where having, even though you weren't prepared for that traffic, having a bit of a checklist that you go down of, what do we do when this happens? So do you have an SOP or process in place for moving to another server? If you have to move to another server and there's different IP addresses, is there now going to be a propagation issue? So we can probably start talking about how to address all these things individually. But I think it's being proactive when you know the traffic is coming, but then being proactive with some good mitigation plans and processes if it happens unexpectedly. So I guess what I'm saying is, you always have the opportunity to be prepared for this.
And this is like, I live in Southern California. We have floods and we have fires, actual. And the prep is really important. And that's why everybody is actually here today watching and being a part of this panel. And we do have a poll running right now on, has your website ever crashed due to traffic? So I just published that poll there. Would love for all the participants to fill that out. But this is it. Mike, everybody, we are here to help that prep. Nick, any last thoughts on this?
I think everyone nailed it. I mean, like, load testing's pretty big, right? Like 10, 20 years ago, like everyone just ran like JMeter, like that's all there was, right? But there's a pretty good sophisticated set of tools out there that make it easy for folks to do exactly what Mike, Weston, and Vladi ran through, right? It's about being proactive and being able to go, will I be successful when I have, I don't know, 1,000 customers a minute, or whatever your projected target is, of folks kind of coming through and converting? And that stuff's come a long way in the last decade or so. So
fantastic. So for these like small and medium businesses, what are the must-haves around like website scalability, right? What should we be looking for when hosting an infrastructure setup?
Well, I think to go back on Mike is obviously be prepared. And step one there is make sure you have backups. So on your hosting side, backups and staging is going to get you a long way, because during your testing, you're going to need to try something different. Obviously, a staging site will help you a lot, that you do your load testing on a staging rather than your client's live site, and have a risk of messing anything up there. But also you will look for, the first step will do any sort of vertical scaling that is easy to upscale your server or your resources vertically. Obviously, there's way more complex ones, which I think we can talk about a little bit later. But for me, those are the sort of must three, vertical scaling, backups, and staging. Without those, I don't think you can do anything that Mike recommended. Or, you're going to get yourself into some headaches working on a live site, doing any of those methods of load testing and preparation.
the other thing I'd mention, Jen, would be SMB, right? Like it's putting food on your table, right? Like it's not a hobbyist, right? And so I'd be looking at what concepts or capabilities are available to your platform when it comes to managed hosting, right? Because it's an SMB's got a sizable amount of investment and probably some revenue involved here, where peace of mind and the ability to utilize experts in order to help you be successful, that's pretty important. So like when you first start out as a founder, you do it yourself, right? But then once you start being successful, you really need to kind of look and go, what can I exchange money wise with my provider to have them provide me some sort of best of breed capability for what it means to manage my hosting for me.
Yeah, it makes sense. And to make it easy for you, what Weston said about vertical scaling, if it's simple as making a selection and clicking a button, that's wonderful. That's what I would be looking for in a hosting setup, not having to talk with two different experts, finding them, making sure that they are in sync, and somehow 10 years later, oh, now we're better. No, not that.
Yeah, and this goes straight into this idea of like, we're talking about some costs now, right? And what are some smart ways to scale your website without overspending, right? So we talked a little bit, Nick, about like where it's appropriate at this stage, founder stage, to do it all yourself. So how do we do this without overspending? And how do we balance performance and budget throughout our growth, right?
Because you don't want to overspend at the beginning when you have no traffic.
You can't put the cart before the horse. Like I'm saying this all day long to my clients. Like you go and you put the cart before the horse. They don't push. Horses pull carts. So we got to be smart about this. So what have you guys learned around this idea of not overspending and that balance?
Yeah, I think it goes a little bit to preparation, but also to go back to what Nick said. It is, the bread and butter of a lot of these businesses. So there has to be some investment there. Again, if we were talking about anything with a physical presence, a real business, that people can walk into, you wouldn't really cheap out too much on that. So there has to be some sort of investment. But when you come in, become a little bit smart with your budget, is ensuring what you put on there is optimized from the get-go. So that as your preparation, don't upload a 10 megabyte JPEG file as one of your main images. So optimize images beforehand, making sure your code base is optimized. Use your caching and test that before, because a lot of your payments will go into using that excessive resources. So as much of them can be static, and that's served by a CDN or from cache, will reduce that stress on the server. And that will then reduce, the amount of resources you actually need to run your website, e-commerce store, or application that you're running.
Yeah, my go-to tool is also caching most of the times, and caching is at various levels actually. So there is not one type of caching, but there is a catch. You might be going into some troubles. I'm not going to go into the technical part, but it's not necessarily a wonder tool. I just activate it and poof, my problem is gone forever. And no, you need to apply it carefully. So maybe, advice, contact somebody to give you some good piece of advice and start implementing it the right way.
One other thing to think about, Jen, would be one of the things we talked about with one of the previous questions was around your ability to resize, right? We talked about the magic button or the easy button. And so when you're looking for a platform, understanding how much you can kind of either scale up or scale down, right? If you think of how hosting used to work a long time ago, it was very, very bespoke, right? It was and so there's a dynamicness here with cloud. And so when you're looking at your platform, how easy is it for you to be able to go, my gosh, I'm being wildly successful. I need to scale up. Does your platform provide the ability for you to do that in a reasonable kind of native way, which could include you scaling down too as well, right? If you've got some big event, you might want to spend a little bit of extra money for your big event, and then let's go ahead and spin it down and right size our costs.
Sorry to interrupt. I want to add, there are two types of growth. There's the unexpected or sudden spike that now we have 100 visitors and in the next minute we have 10,000. But there's also the linear growth where the website or whatever you have keeps getting a bit slower each day by day. So these two problems have different solutions, but they both come back to how easy it is for me to go into my infrastructure account and make some changes.
I love it. And Vladi, you were talking a little bit about caching, and it's a popular, solution. How do they boost scalability and performance, especially during traffic spikes, right? And what are some best practices for implementing this?
Well, coming back to my horror story with the affiliate marketing and our database crashing, was that each time we had one visitor, each time we had multiple reading from the database, right? With caching, we don't have that multiple reading for each and every user. We could have 100 users and only one process reading, something like that. So basically, let's say essentially that's something that caching can help with. And you still have the same server, the same size, which can hold much more traffic than before activating caching. And CDN also is an option which helps because the CDN distributes your content geographically. So being closer to your visitors with your content means that they will they would have a better experience. They will download the content faster. And also, it's not a single point of failure. They are distributed. So in case something is gone wrong, they can automatically be directed to the one that's working.
And on that, we did just publish another poll. Thank you all for filling out the poll. Really appreciate that. But we're talking about these CDNs and whatnot. What else do you guys have to say about caching CDNs?
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I think you have to do a quick audit of your project application or slash website, how many static resources can you get away with? Yes, there's a lot of dynamic elements to, any process flows. If we use e-commerce store, price in stock, but there's a lot of things that can be static. As many of those can be cached, and those can be served from the CDN. Product images, those don't change too often. So you need to just try to limit the amount of dynamic resources you really need to be querying your database. And all of that can then be stored on your edge caching, your CDN, or the cache from the server. And basically for layman's terms, for everyone else, all that does is, it's being processed on the first visit. That's ready to go at the edge of the server. There's no more querying that needs to be happening again. And that will help you have that cost-effective way. Unfortunately, if you are going into a lot more dynamic resources used, like a learning management system, courseware, a high traffic and high revenue e-commerce store, there is obviously transactions going through payment gateways. That stuff obviously can never be cached. You don't want to be caching someone's payment information or a API call. But then you will look at the features that we look in and saying, can I vertically scale this in a cost-effective manner? And I know that a lot of my resources, all my images, my library, that is static, that's cached, and I'm more focused on scaling my dynamic resources and the server to be able to push that out.
Yeah, other thoughts, y'all?
Yeah, I think one thing a lot of business owners need to consider, we brought the question up about the cost and investment in all of these things. And while definitely when you're in the startup phase, you as a founder are going to try to do as much of this as possible. And I know we're all sitting here on a Cloudways webinar, so we're all probably fans of the platform. And I think it's fair to say that Cloudways is a really good platform for those who don't have a ton of technical experience, because the vertical scaling is essentially 1 or 2 clicks. The support is, I think, really great. And they've got a good team there helping diagnose problems or things when they come up. The caching plugin through Breeze and the integration with WordPress and the Cloudflare Enterprise setup and integration, it's all very simple and straightforward. And I think it does provide a new business or a founder-led company to be able to start to enable some of these more technical features in a pretty user-friendly way. And that's going to get you pretty far in terms of that, at least the first few phases of your growth. But like anything, once you get into a little bit more complicated problem, you do need to have an expert behind you, whether that's a company on retainer or at least someone that you can reach out to that you can trust. And if your business relies on revenue coming through your website, I mean, a lot of companies don't think twice about hiring a bookkeeper, an accountant, or a lawyer to do some contracts or things for them. And I don't think your website should be put into some second or third tier asset class for your company, when in reality, it's probably generating could be a double-digit portion of your revenue. And I'm sure, as Vlad was going to get into, is there's lots of challenges with too. It can create unintended consequences or things that you didn't expect to happen. So it isn't a silver bullet to scaling problems. And when you get into those technical weeds, support's going to be there to help you, but you might need to have an expert on your side too that's navigating this for you. So I'm speaking from the agency perspective, but I think having an agency or freelancer or a technical person on standby is really important when you're getting into that's at least that third or that fourth wave of growth in your business.
I just want to comment on that really quickly, because in my world, I'm working with digital agencies every day, and I'm mentoring them on growth. And one of the things that I find, y'all, is that with digital agencies, we're newer, right? This whole internet thing, it's newer. We're not lawyers or priests, right? Like, we've not been around for thousands and thousands of years. So we really are pioneering this. And so it's interesting what you said, Mike, about this idea that, we of course, we're going to go to an accountant. Of course, we're going to go to a medical doctor. And now of course, we're going to get help with these extremely important issues that provide our business success, right? So I love that. I love that. Thank you for talking about that. I think it's really important to normalize not doing it all yourself once you get past, very beginning founding stage. I love that. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add, I think that we've also seen, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, this explosion of the freelance marketplace and work from home and remote workers. I mean, it's always been around, but it's really exploded in the last 4 or 5 years. And I think when you're a business that relies on your website or your online presence for a portion or a significant portion of your revenue, that is not the time to go to Fiverr or Upwork and find a random freelancer to start working on your website. And I think there are really great, talented people on those platforms, but you need to find them before you have a problem. And just like a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, you want someone who knows your business and knows where your revenue comes from and what's important and what isn't important, so that they can provide the right advice and guidance along the way. So whether you're hiring an agency or just looking for an individual freelancer, you need to find them when you don't need them, so that they're there when you do, and they're already onboarded to not just your website from a technical perspective, but they actually understand how your business works. And that's when you're going to get the best results from that person.
I love that.
So I agree with Mike 90% of what he just said. There's a bit that I am a bit in a disagreement, and I want to say it out because I think it's important. You mentioned, Mike, at the beginning that it's, if you're a non-technical founder or something, you should go and use these type managed services. Well, I would actually suggest that even if you are technical, and if you are in the early stages, you would still need to go to these managed services, because it removes a lot of headaches and you can focus on real issues and more important issues for your company at that point in time, And later on, in future stages, then you can, and you need to go more in depth, you could go on other routes maybe.
This kind of like bleeds us into this idea of, I'd love to discuss the Cloudways autonomous, and how this is helping with the scalability. I mean, we're talking a lot about reliability, scalability. Vladi, you were talking about this, like when we start here and now we're scaling up and we need to adjust. How does Cloudways autonomous really address the pricing concerns and availability and whatnot?
I'll kickstart a little bit.
Great.
Just adding to what Vladi started there, as agencies or founders and businesses looking towards managed solutions. I think we found ourselves in that boat. I have experience of managing my own servers, and coming across many high traffic, high revenue sites, even using the current Cloudways Flexible. For being introduced to Cloudways autonomous on my side, just made that whole experience a lot easier, from not being having to constantly monitor New Relic and the performance of a website and how many hits and what the error rate of everything coming through, and worrying about, again, a lot of the scaling issues we spoke about, but that was vertical. With something like any autoscale implementation, it's a little bit of elastic, so it kind of pulls the other way. And that is something that autonomous allows you to do. So you don't just have to worry about the resources funneling in on one front. It will scale vertically and the other way. So it's a little big elastic that pulls out. And from a technical point of view, even if you are well technical versed, you don't have to worry about too much. You just basically, what I do is I look at the log and see how many pods are firing up. And I see that everything's running normally. So autonomous has this place for the both technical and the end user for the client. I wouldn't recommend people to try to explore that themselves and trying to make an autoscaling infrastructure or explore many other avenues. Again, it is easy to get onto. You need a little bit of expert understanding. There's always place for agency, and obviously that's where we operate at Buzza. So I'm sure Mike agrees with me on that. Experts are always there to have the helping hand for the client in terms of what solution they need. Are they fine with being on flexible? When do they need to take a step to go to something like autonomous? And again, migrate them through the process. But yeah, it's just been an easy integration of everything we spoke about. The vertical scaling happening, as and when the traffic is coming in. Cost-wise, you're only paying when that traffic comes through, and it's scaling back down. I think traditional methods, you always go in, you scale up in the preparation Mike spoke about before, a Black Friday or expected traffic spike. But if it's unexpected, you've got a bit of a problem. If no one's on standby to quickly, address those issues and scale your resources quick, that's where autoscale / autonomous comes into place. It says, cool, spiking traffic there, load balances are in place, everything's fine. How it worked with 100 users, it's going to work just fine with 100,000 concurrent users. Obviously, you still need to do the base testing, your caching and everything else we spoke about at the start. But once you got that need to manually intervene is sorted.
I love it. Other thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with him. And I don't want to sound like a dinosaur, but back in the day, people used cards and punched cards to do some programming, right? And we've come a long way. We have Kubernetes and we have a ton of tech, but it's still difficult. It's still complex. So a managed solution is an abstractization on top of this, which are other abstractizations, but that's another point. And it makes it much more easier for you to focus on what's important. Handle the traffic, convert your traffic, win, get some money. That's it.
Love it.
That's a huge call out, Vladi, like, because like what is your core competency? Like, what is your differentiator with whatever you are, right? You're probably not a Kubernetes administrator, right? Or an autoscale guru, right? You're here to make business, make money with your website as an SMB. And so when I think about something like autonomous, it's really about taking a pattern of how to utilize cloud technology to meet a business need and packaging it together in a way that meets customer needs. Right? That's really what this is, and it does things like this. Do a really great job of going. If you would like to unlock this pattern that works well for scaling websites, you can buy it here, right? And especially when you couple it with things like managed support and all that, like that's perfect for an SMB, right? Like because that's what they want. They want to be able to start deal with all these other challenges and failure modes and surges and spikes and going viral. Everything we talked about before, you kind of get something like that by going with a solution like autonomous.
I love it. And honestly, this idea that your image as a business, I love, Weston, you're talking about the analogy of an actual physical store. Like that's very helpful to like imagine like you have 1,000 people show up, but you have a tiny little door and they can't get through. When it comes to website reliability and impact on user trust and overall business performance, what do you guys have to say about this? Like, when we're thinking of a website going down or the door doesn't even exist today, right? What's this look like? Website reliability impacting user experience, trust, whatnot.
It's huge, right? I mean, I think it's demonstrably proven in a couple of different ways, right? One, whatever the data is that says like, hey, if the page doesn't load in, 1.5 seconds, like people bounce or something, right? So if it's slow, you're going to lose people, right? And I would definitely close the tab, right? If it's sitting there wheeling. And then the other thing to keep in mind as well, your search engine optimization is impacted by how fast you load, right? If your site is slow, these crawlers and these indexers like Google and stuff, they observe that, and it impacts your organic search results, where you land in people's organic search results.
Yeah.
For me, it's one word, and that word is choices. Users now have a ton of choices. If you're not in good shape, I won't wait. I won't stay. You're not the only one who could offer me that service or that product. I'll just instantly go in another place, and my money would go there. So that's the main issue with website reliability.
And especially when you think about mobile is so pervasive with web presence. The phone is an absolute distraction machine. It's full of apps and notifications, and so it's just like what Vladi said. It's begging to take your attention away. So if something is slow on mobile, you're going to lose those. You're going to lose those customers. Those visitors are going to walk and go do something else.
Yeah, I think to add to that, it's your brand's credibility that's at risk. You're having a customer come through a campaign that you've been running on socials or advertising or traditional marketing methods, and you expect them to put their credit card details and spend a couple of $100, but the whole experience is very slow. That breaks that trust. Again, going Vladi, the choices, they have many other options that they can go for, but your brand credibility and that trust that the customer needs to build, to become a lifelong customer, recurring customer, or recommend your brand across the others, that can be totally ruined by the bad reliability and really bad performance on your site.
Yeah, and truth is, we do judge a book by its cover, especially when it comes to businesses. And I think there's a easy case to be made if you're selling product or directly generating revenue through the website to invest in this presence. But I think we're at a point now in 2024 where most customers will even judge a physical business's presence based on their online presence. And I think this can apply. Maybe you're looking for like a massage therapist or a chiropractor or someone to do some work on your car. You might not be doing that transaction online, but if you visit their website and it seems slow or kind of broken, or it's not working the way you would expect, you do start to project that onto the business itself. And that might not be right, but it makes me think about a story from a long time ago where there was a contractor that was going to quote and do some business for a friend of mine. And there was a big, like, glaring typo on their business card. And that, it's just a typo on the business card, not a big deal. But that my friend ended up telling me that contractor was terrible and had low attention to detail. And like, that's an example where you have to, as a business, take pride in anything that customers touch. And I think that's very easy to do when you have a physical presence. You want to have a welcoming showroom, offer a coffee at your auto repair shop, or have a nice couch for people to sit on while they're waiting. But we need to start thinking about that pride in our online presence as well, because that actually will translate to more customers that trust and respect and want to do business with you.
And I think it's even gone to a new level, y'all, where we don't even necessarily consciously know why we don't trust somebody or what's going on. And you're just like, well, that's, you're not thinking the site was okay, but not great, but not horrible, and it's just like, no, I don't have a really good feeling. I'm moving on. So this absolutely, Mike, I love it.
Yeah, your example is very subliminal. I remember something. Sorry, Weston, I'll give you the mic in just a moment. So I was visiting a website and it was working, but it had some errors in it, right? And I saw the error messages. They weren't hidden in a console or something. And my next thought was, I can't enter my credit card details on your website.
Mm-hmm.
I can't make the purchase. I'm sorry. Bye.
Yeah.
So this is another example.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to add to that. I mean, just to that example, we onboarded a client about 2 months ago and went through this entire process we were all talking about now, getting them scaling ready. And, they were on, shared hosting before, which is obviously not ideal. So we went through the entire process, went through a little bit of a rebuild, so not too hectic on that side, but no marketing efforts. Traffic was exactly the same. And within a month, they 4 times the revenue. So it just shows that the customers were there, they just weren't converting because of these subconscious reasons, the trust, the credibility, and just that feeling you'll get. And again, the reliability, if it doesn't work once, you've got the other choices, you can go away, you can be frustrated. But it was very interesting for us to see just the actual impact it has where, take the marketing side out of it. You've got X amount of users per month, and traditionally over the last year, they've been making X amount of revenue. And all of a sudden, just to have this change, increase it by 4 times. I think people should definitely take a deeper look into it. How can you implement that in your business? Are you looking at the reliability of your site? Is your conversion rate optimization really there? Are you thinking from a marketing standpoint, but actually that experience when someone's on the site? Yes, there's a UX part to it, but again, are you breaking that trust barrier through the technology that you're using?
Mm-hmm. So, we're talking about these like sudden spikes, and there's some we know are coming, right? So Black Friday, right? We're all super oriented to Black Friday. And it can really be make or break, right? There, especially if your site's down, right? So how can people prep? Like, how do you prep your website for an event such as Black Friday, right? What metrics should people be watching?
You want to go first? Again, I think we spoke about it a little bit at the start. Your testing, your preparation, exactly like Mike spoke about, and having those operations in place. There's always a chance something can go wrong. So your standard operating procedures around that need to be put in place. But your load testing can be done before. Fire up a staging site, test everything, make sure that your hosted infrastructure is up to scratch. If you are expecting it, put the vertical scaling a little bit higher before that point. You can look at historical data, your Google Analytics data from previous. You can run your pingdom test. You can use New Relic and see, with 100 users, how many resources you're in. With styles and how many you're using, so you can kind of predict. But there's always that unexpected. You don't know how well your campaigns are going to work. And that's the point of something like autonomous, that you don't have to worry too much. Still do your testing beforehand, make sure everything's running, be sure you're autonomous, or you up your vertical scaling for that period based on your historical load. And for us, then it's monitoring during that time, looking into success rate, looking for error rates, looking for how many times your got missed. You can quickly start to identify errors in that sense. And if you are e-commerce, you're looking for that transaction drop off, or people dropping off on their payment pages. Those are quite your red alerts. And there's so many monitoring tools out there that you can use to monitor. I mean, Clarity has been an amazing free one that you can heat map your site and also have the live recordings to really see what's going on. But then also reduce your load on the processing side before that. And, if there's no need for these certain features to be live for Black Friday, it's going to be focused on your main call to action. You can turn quite a few things off just for that period to reduce that excessive load you don't need. But again, if you're on something like autonomous, less of a worry.
Love it. Did we nail that, Nick? I see the big...
Nailed it. No notes.
Fantastic. Any other thoughts on what to watch? What to be looking for?
Besides the obvious, it depends. I mean, I hate this word, but I actually think that the key metrics to watch kind of depend on your current stage, what you're selling, what you're doing, what your business is about. I could say I could be looking at something like a number of purchases made on the site in a certain period of time. So knowing my averages, knowing my maximum, let's say if I prepared myself so that I would kind of know that, oh, we are close to maximum, we need to do something about that. But again, it could vary from business to business quite a lot. And to sort of offer, let's say, an alternative to what Weston said about cutting some things off that are maybe not important for that time period, which is an awesome idea. I'm going to steal that, Weston. I'm sorry. I did something a bit different. So in preparation for Black Friday, what we did was to make some very specific landing pages, which were completely separate from the actual website on a completely different servers. They didn't have a lot of things in common, and we made them very static, so everything loaded really, really fast. And the only thing that we loaded dynamically was the stock, because it was important to actually show products that were still available to be bought. And that helped. This separation helped a lot, because those static landing pages can take a lot, and the website was able to perform almost as normal as it could in those periods. But
that's a really good point and idea. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to finish. It's not easy to do. So it's not something that you can, let's do this, and 2 hours later it's done. You need prep. You need somebody to do it. So a managed services is a bit better, isn't it?
I love it.
I really like that point, and the idea I think is actually a really key takeaway for this Black Friday conversation about putting landing pages off of your primary site. So it can be on a subdomain, it can be on a different server. Then you can just cache the hell out of it, because it's not going to be dynamic, and then the product links go back to your main catalog. And I think this is a really good strategy for also making sure that the mission critical parts of your site don't go down when you're getting a flood of traffic from Facebook ads or something like that. And I think that also goes back to the point about having somebody who can help provide that kind of advice and guidance, because they actually know your business and they know how you're going to market your products and what your ads look like. There was a couple comments in chat about how good freelancers can get onboarded to sites quite quickly. And I do agree with that. A good freelancer is going to be able to jump into a site and hopefully within an hour or two get a lay of the land. but it takes longer to get onboarded to the business itself and understand how they market and how they sell and where their traffic swings come from. And you can't provide that kind of advice like, hey, you should move all your landing pages to a subdomain with a separate install of WordPress. You can't make that advice until you start to know the business a little bit better. And that's, I think, the difference between looking for someone in a reactive situation versus being proactive and building that team behind your online business and your online presence.
I love it. This has been so wonderful, y'all. We are going to be ending in just a second. I just want to say thank you for everybody out in the audience and filling out the polls and asking great questions. We didn't get time for questions because this conversation was so good. Thank you, panel. I really, really appreciate that you were all here. We had a lot of gold dropped on us here. And one of the main things was this idea of you at home, you in your offices, you are the professionals. You might not feel it yet, but you are, or you're fully perfect. Get help, get the expert help you need, right? So that you can focus on your area of expertise, your gift, yours, whatever special thing you're bringing to the world, you focus on that and get the professionals around you to help, especially when it comes to your livelihood, right? Nick, you're talking about this is not a joke. Business is not a joke. We do it because we love it, but there we go. We do it also because we need to do it. Because of things we want in life, like electricity, right? And healthcare, right? So y'all, thank you so very much for being here. This has been absolutely wonderful. I appreciate your time and your energy. Y'all are fantastic. Thank you for being here. Thank you, all the audience, for being here and participating. Love it. We are going to end this session. Thank you guys so very much. We've got a next session coming up, which is it is like an audit, right? It's performance. So we've had people, you all have put in your sites to see like how are they actually performing. So we're going to go and we're going to consult on that with a specialist in just a few minutes. So thank you all. There is a survey overall because you know how this goes. We're always trying to get better, right, Nick? Right? We are always growing. We are always getting better. That's what we do as humans, right? It's super fantastic. So do help us with that survey. And we will see you all very shortly. Yay,
Bye.
wonderful.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Enjoy.
Fantastic.
Thanks. This was great. Thank you all.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
We should do this again.
Let's. I would love to. Very cool.